Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Black Belts and Boardrooms. Today, we have a special guest, Renard, and I know you're excited because I know you're a Saints fan, my friend, aren't you?
Course, yes, a
Yeah,
diehard Saints fan. Who that?
exactly.
Who that? Who that say they gonna beat them Saints?
Well, definitely not me. I'm not much of a football fan, but I'm excited for the guest we have today for a few reasons. And here's what I want to frame the conversation before we introduce our guest today. Each of us have a career where, we've done the work, we do everything right. We look at what is necessary for success in a role. We show up, we put in the systems that'll help us train and maintain that discipline. But then when you actually get there, the system doesn't hold up, right? And that's really the arc of the guest we have today here is that he showed up, he did the work, but then the system said, hey, not today, buddy. But then he didn't stop, he persevered. And in his case, winning Super Bowl 44 with the New Orleans Saints. And I know you are stoked about that because I've heard you mention how excited you were when the Saints won. But no more pauses. I want to introduce our guest today, Mr. Lance Moore. Lance, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you having me. And um, it never gets old hearing Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl winner, the New Orleans Saints champion. I mean, like it's Renard obviously goes back as a Saints fan longer than I do. Because I didn't join the team until 2005, but to go from where we were in 2005, that's obviously the Hurricane Katrina season, to winning a Super Bowl, winning consistently to the team that they are today. It's pretty cool to see the trajectory, and just happy to say that I was a small piece of the success that the Saints have had over the in recent minutes.
Well, Lance, I think it's fair to say that business is a team sport. And you have not only the muscle, but the accolades to go along with it. And I only touched on the surface, but I wanted you to expand on it for us. So you set state records, if I'm not mistaken, throughout your whole high school career. And you did the same thing when you went to University of Toledo. And then the draft happened, and then you didn't quite get the reaction or the response you wanted. Could I ask you to take us back to that moment and then just kind of share with us what was going through your mind when it all played out in the way it did?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I grew up with a karate background. Dojo. My dad still has a dojo to this day. He'll be 75 years old next month. 10th degree black belt. Still takes teams to competitions. I mean, like that was the environment that I grew up around from the time that I was 3 years old. So work has always been something that has kind of been ingrained into me. Like it's not a big deal for me to go and work out. It's not a big deal for me to go and practice. It's not a big deal for me to understand that I'm going to have to grind to get whatever the end result is that I'm hoping for. And so you mentioned high school, I was first team all state. College, I was first team all conference, honorable mention all American. Arrow pointing up until the fourth quarter of the bowl game my senior year, in a game that I probably had no business playing in to begin with. Um, Combine invite, all-star game invites, all that stuff is out the window. And so signing with a good agent, who I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about the agency world as we get going, but an agent that was honest with me about where I stood and what the realistic outlook was for me. I'm a smaller in stature guy, 5'10", 185 pounds. I played at a smaller school, Toledo, and now I was injured. And he said, "We know you can play in the league, but teams might not draft you. You've got all these factors working against you. Plus, you throw in a shoulder surgery into the mix. You're not healthy. So the reality is, while we think you're good enough to be drafted, you might not get drafted." So I think setting realistic expectations, I mean, that's something that I kind of live by. But the fact that we were kind of able to do that ahead of time, I'm not going to say it made it okay, but I think it lessened the blow for a guy that probably in a perfect world would have been a mid-round draft pick. So the fact that I wasn't drafted was disappointing, yet it didn't necessarily break my confidence. It didn't, break my spirit. It just kind of told me, okay, it didn't happen the way that I had hoped it would, but that's not the end of the world. I'm going to get an opportunity. Now, what I do with that opportunity is what's going to be most important, and ultimately what would be the beginning of a process that would help to define what my journey would ultimately end up being. So, um, understanding that there is a reality that, being undrafted was possible. That was important to me. But then again, realizing that being drafted is not the only way. There are multiple ways to have success in this world, and it's not always a one track road to get you there. And for me, it was a pretty difficult road early on. But I maintained my confidence. I maintained the work. I always say that you can't hide from the work. And I made sure that I stayed ready if and when that opportunity were to come.
It's amazing. I'm so glad to hear your dad is also a martial artist in the striking, side of the house, Mr. Renard. I can't do jujitsu, Lance, just so you know. So I poke Renard every chance I get. So
Yes, sir. I've never taken a jujitsu class. I've got buddies who do, and they love it. I got my black belt when I was 10 years old, and I was basically at that point counting the days until I could play other sports. So it's been it's been over 30 years since I've even put a gi on and a belt, and but I still have a love and affinity for the arts. And, like I said, my dad is still in the dojo today. Like when we go back to Columbus, Ohio, I bring my kids and my dad puts them through a little short class. Like it's still cool to be around it. And I do from time to time miss the feeling of walking in the dojo, taking my shoes off and getting to it.
that's amazing. I got to ask you, OSU. How do you feel about OSU?
So I grew up 10 minutes from campus.
Yeah.
Basically, my whole family went to Ohio State. Both my parents went to Ohio State. And I had family who played, or one of my cousins played football at Ohio State. And so I, like most guys who grew up there, the dream is to play at Ohio State. And I was just like everybody else. And while they recruited me, they didn't offer me a scholarship. And I actually didn't have any scholarship offers until about 2.5, 3 weeks before I graduated from high school. Believe it or not, I mean, I played in Division 1, which is the biggest division in Ohio. Had great success, like you mentioned earlier. I broke state records in Ohio in receiving, and this is 25 years ago now. I graduated in the class of 2001, so this was kind of before the air raid offenses where teams are just throwing the ball all over the place. Now there were some, but not a ton. I had 103 catches my senior year, which was kind of unheard of back then, at least. And for somebody to have that level of success, and academically, I was very very strong. I think I graduated high school with a 3.7 overall GPA. Taking AP courses, so it wasn't like I was lacking in one area, and that could be the reason why teams weren't recruiting me. But um, I plan to walk on at Ohio State. Like if I was going to walk on anywhere, it was going to be there. And thankfully, I got a couple offers after that. To me, it was more important because I didn't come from money. It was more important to have a scholarship, so free school, as opposed to having to figure out how my parents and I were going to figure out how to pay for school at Ohio State. So, still a fan, still love the Buckeyes. I'm pretty tapped in there with guys that I played with or against that went there. And again, I have a lot of family who's still in Columbus, and a lot of Buckeyes through and through.
That's amazing. Lance, I just want to highlight one point. Your agent seems more like a mentor to me. Is that a good way to frame that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well, now I mean, he's definitely a mentor now. I mean, because he's my partner. And so like now that I'm an agent, I'm learning from a guy that's been in the game for over 25 years now. But um, I don't know that I would have necessarily considered him a mentor back then, right? Because you're meeting somebody in a more business sense. Like as a football player, I'm hiring an agent. He's supposed to do work for me, but over the years that relationship kind of cultivates, and it turns into somewhat of a mentorship, guidance thing. But I think as I was younger, I thought that I maybe not necessarily had it all figured out, but I was a little more hesitant to take on mentors, because I just didn't want to ever feel like I was bugging anybody.
Mm.
I don't want to seem needy, you know. And in hindsight, I'm like, man, I probably could have tapped into some more avenues had I been a little more um, open about taking mentors on and just trying to gain as much knowledge as humanly possible. I was so hyper focused on football. What do I need to do to get better? What do I need to do to make this team? Then it was, what do I need to do to be an active guy on game days? Then it was, what do I need to do to start games? And so, like, it kind of progresses from there. And you kind of lose sight of everything else that's going on outside of football. And not to say that it was to my detriment, because I did go on and have a great career, and I'm able to live a really good and comfortable life now. But um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of younger guys aren't as quick to open up and to allow others to come in and to help and guide them. But thankfully, better late than never. By definitely taking on some mentors and not opposed to anybody if they've got advice or guidance for
I'm curious, Lance, from, you got to play on Fridays, at one point, Saturdays on another point, and then Sundays and sometimes Mondays, depending on when the games are. I'm curious, do your progression through high school, college, and then making the NFL, did you ever feel like when you got to the practice squad that you weren't gonna make it to, be on, a live squad at any point? Were there any doubts during that transition and through those times?
Well, before I answer that question, it's funny you go Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sometimes Monday. Well, over my shoulder over here, I don't know if you can see it, but there's a Sports Illustrated
Uh-huh.
that I was when I was at Toledo that I was in. It's like a full page spread, and this is back 21 years ago. What is this? 22 years ago. Was This picture was the captains at Toledo walking out to a coin toss against Northern Illinois, and the caption reads Tuesday Night Lights, and then it's dot 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 and Wednesdays and Thursdays. Well, because this was back in the day when max schools, you had to play on whatever night you could to get on national television, and so I am one of the very very few people I think that has probably played a game on every single day of the week, just naturally because of where I played and when I played. Um, but to answer your question, of course, I'm a human, and there were moments, maybe not necessarily in me not thinking that I was capable or thinking that I was good enough, but maybe thinking that, dang, I might not ever get the true opportunity that I think I need to prove that I'm a guy that should be out here on Sundays. Um, it's bouncing up and down from practice squads was stressful. Getting cut 5 times in my career was stressful. But I for whatever reason I always knew that I could play. Um, and call it extra confidence, call it uber confidence, call it overconfidence, but I just the success that I had later in high school made me believe that I could play in college. The success that I had later in college made me believe, hey, I'm probably good enough to be an NFL player. The success took a little longer for me to get to becoming a regular in the NFL. So that was a little slower, but even though I wasn't playing early on, I still felt like I was good enough. And so it's once I got cut from the Browns, my rookie training camp in 2005, I think I had a shift in kind of the mentality, or my focus was different. Not that I was comfortable per se, but I was definitely, I think I took that opportunity for granted a little, and maybe there were things that I could have done differently. I don't know that it would ultimately change the outcome that happened there, but I knew that once I got another opportunity, I wasn't going to let it pass me by. I was going to approach every single day of work, whether I was on practice squad, active, injured reserve, or whatever that was going to be down the line. I was going to treat every single day like my game day. And so once the Saints called me week 4 of the 2005 season, obviously we were in San Antonio that year, but I was out of work from, the last week of preseason for the next month. So it gave me a lot of time to be like, man, like I can't let another opportunity pass me by. And so I showed up that first day, and from that first practice on, it was like I turned into a whole different player. Like it wasn't like I was a different player, but my mentality was different. I didn't care that the starting defensive backs were mad at me for going hard every single play. That's hey, that's on you. If you guys don't want to turn up on me, that's your problem. But just because you guys can't stop me, or you're trying to make out the easy way with me by me not going hard, that's not going to get me a job. That's not going to keep my job, and that's not going to earn me a spot onto the active roster. And I was so adamant about just my routine and trying to figure out the best possible way to not just become a pro, but to stay a pro. And I think that level of practice and mentality is what kind of helped to guide me on to the rest of my career.
And for you, and you talk about that perseverance and training, etc. I want our listeners to understand, like, it is not easy to make it to a professional league. There's a small group of people that get a chance to actually make and then stay in the league. I think what the average in the NFL for NFL players, maybe what, 2 to 3, 2 to 5.
It's just under 3 years. And look, I mean, I think it's sure everybody knows it's hard to make it to the NFL, and everybody who played high school football has got a story of why they didn't make it to the NFL. And I'm not trying to ever poo-poo on anybody who was a great high school player and had potential, but the reality is there's 1,700 or so players in the National Football League in a given season. That's in the entire world. So just think about, the how low of a percentage that is. And then you add to that, every single year there's a new crop of players coming in. So it's hard to make it. It's even harder to stay. And that's like, as I'm working in this agent space now, that's one thing that I'm telling my guys, like, yeah, you made it, you got drafted, you're on a roster, but you got to stay. And being there should never make you comfortable. You need to make sure that you stay hungry enough so that your work continues, your preparation continues, your attitude stays the same. And because they're always trying to replace you. Like, it's cool to say that I had a cup of tea in the NFL. It's even cooler to say I played over a decade. And that goes to obviously the work, the luck. There's luck associated with it because you got to stay healthy enough to be able to be on rosters every year. Um, but also, you know, uh, uh, definitely blessed and fortunate to have been where I was when I was, because I don't know that my career would have ended up the way that it did had I never gotten cut from Cleveland all the way back in 2005.
No, you hit on a certain point, like you made it there, and then how do you stay there? And that's the same thing we say on the corporate side as well. Like, you made it to where you wanted to get to, but now it's how do you stay there? Because just because you made it there doesn't mean you get a chance to stay there. You got to continue to prove yourself every single day, continue to improve, get better, etc. So, of course, like, again, Amir knows I am a Who Dat fan. I need to go to the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
All right. It was is fourth quarter, that 2-point conversion. I need you to take me through that stage of that 2-point conversion in that fourth quarter for me.
So the 2009 season was, I would say, as great of a year as it was for Saints fans. It was probably the hardest year of my career. I was coming off of a 2008 season where I basically burst onto the scene. I had played a little bit in '06, more in '07. I started a few games in '07, but '08, Marcus Colston goes down. I'm basically thrust into the starting lineup and incredible year, almost 1,000 yards, 70 plus catches, and 10 touchdowns. And for a guy that probably shouldn't be there, to have that type of year and leave that season feeling really good about where my career was headed. I injure my shoulder in the off season, have a shoulder surgery, come back for training camp, get hurt a couple times throughout this. I ended up missing 9 games on the Super Bowl season. And so while I was thankful that our team was doing well and having great success, and while when the games that I played well, but it was a struggle personally and especially mentally, just trying to hang in there while I'm waiting for my body to catch up and to get back healthy. So just the fact that I was able to get healthy enough to go on the playoff run was a win for me. Um, and then you talk about the Super Bowl. Any football player would tell you that playing in the Super Bowl is a dream of theirs, like since they're a little kid. And so I was no different in that way. And stepping out onto that field, it felt like a dream come true. But then to make a couple of plays in the Super Bowl, and then you mentioned the 2 point conversion, um, that was a play that I ran in New Orleans hundreds of times. That was basically my play, and I knew once we scored that touchdown to go up by 5, probably going to call my number to run that play to put us up by 7, and it's a catch that kind of has become synonymous with me, to Saints fans and people in New Orleans in that area, really NFL fans if they know the history of football in the game. But I made the play a lot harder than it should have been. My alignment was a little bit deeper, so I was a little bit further off of the line of scrimmage than I probably should have been, which then forced me out a little bit early, which then forces Drew to throw the ball a little bit sooner than he probably wanted to. And so I wasn't necessarily in the right place at the right time. And so since the ball ended up being a little out and further in front of me than it should have been, I had to make this circus catch that I ended up, turning over on my head and extending the ball over the goal line. And people ask me like, man, how did you do that? I said, honestly, it wasn't anything that I thought of other than catch the ball and make sure I get into the end zone. And so like my body kind of took over after that. But I still think it's like I've had better catches in my life. Maybe not catches in games. Maybe there's 1 or 2 catches in games that people could go, "Oh man, that was crazy." But I've had catches in practices and in training that I think are a lot harder than that particular catch was. I just made it harder on myself than I probably should have. But again, um, happy to be a part of something that was so special. And, um, you know, ultimately it wasn't the score that ended up winning us the game, but it helped us to go up 7 and continue the positive momentum that was clearly on our side of that.
Lance, I'm gonna tell you what most people say, a catch is a catch.
True. True
That's what most
story.
people say, a catch is a catch. Doesn't matter how awkward it looks, etcetera, a catch is a catch.
That's
And
right.
I'll tell you the story from my end. Of course, Katrina happens, etcetera. I move out here to Dallas, Texas. My mom is in Baton Rouge. Of course, I'm watching the game from my apartment. The Saints win the Super Bowl. My mother calls me screaming, crying on the phone. I'm in my apartment crying. I was like, I never thought this was ever going to happen. And just to see after what happened to our city, you know, and winning a Super Bowl was unfathomable at the time, and it's something that I probably will never forget. My grandfather was still alive at the time. It's the history and the celebration that brought to the city is so important, especially going through Katrina and losing so much. I could sit here and talk about all the stuff that happened during that time, but you were part of something that was so special to our city. So again, thank you for making that catch. Trust me, and thank you for being part of the team, the city, etc. But it was something I probably will never forget. Even though my son is not, he's never lived in New Orleans, I tell him about it all the time, etc. So he knows. So definitely it is much appreciated. Now I'm kind of curious from your aspect. What's the symbol? You know, people usually have symbols around certain numbers they wear and in their career. What's the symbol around number 16 for you?
Well, it's funny you asked that. So I wore the number one in high school, and then a majority of my time in college. Back when I went to the NFL, guys couldn't wear single digits if you weren't a quarterback or a kicker. The number one was not an option. So when I went to the Browns, as soon as I got in the locker room, number 11 was in my locker. Cool. There it is. I can't wear one. I would love to wear 11. Um, get cut from the Browns. And basically, in my mind, I was like, I just want a jersey. Like, I don't care what the number is. So when I got to New Orleans, 16 was in my locker. Cool. That's literally the significance of it. Like that was the number that they assigned me. I didn't ask for a different number because at that point it was like I just want an opportunity. I couldn't care less about what the number is on my jersey. I just want to be here and I want to continue to be here. So I'm not going to be the guy that's running to the equipment room asking if I can get a different number. Like it's um it was a number that wasn't, I would say, heavily worn by receivers back then. More so like a quarterback number, but I honestly didn't care. Like it wound up being a nice number to wear for me, but there was no background story to it or anything like that, other than it was the number that was hanging up in my locker. And I will say that I definitely kind of hoped that I would also be number 11 when I got to New Orleans, but it didn't hurt my feelings at all that I wasn't number 11 when I got there.
You know, Lance, I have a deeper appreciation of what you're just now saying in the sense that you're persistent, you keep doing the work, and something I say on this show and Renard and I talk about is that everybody who wants to be the best is a craftsperson or a craftsman, and you, sir, are definitely a craftsman. Um, you know, I want to ask you. Some people believe that when you win, it changes everything. Does it?
Um, I guess it depends on what you're referring to. But as long as Sean Payton used to always say, like, you're used to eating hamburger all the time. I'm just eating hamburger. But then that one chance you get to a nice steakhouse and you eat a ribeye, and you're like, dang, that tastes pretty good. It's hard for you to go back to hamburger after that. And so I feel like while we felt like our Super Bowl team was going to continue and win multiple Super Bowls, we didn't get pacified by just that one steak. We wanted to continue to get and to have steak again and again and again. And I think some people can't handle success. I think some teams can't handle success. Some companies can't handle success. They're not built for it. They get it one time, they're pacified. I think other people are wired differently and they think, I need that. And so it's almost like a drug, I guess to say. Like the success becomes not necessarily the motivation, but it becomes a driving force in what you do because you need to have it again and again and again, and you like the way that it feels. And I felt like that for me, having just a little bit of success was like, okay, I did that, but now what? I got to do more. I want to do more because I don't want just that steak. I want that steak. I want a little crab meat on the top. You know what I mean? Like I want more. And I think a lot of successful people in this world, both in athletics and everywhere else, have a constant kind of want or need for more than what it is that they're currently having. Um, an old coach of mine back in the day used to say, "You're either getting better or you're getting worse." Like it's impossible for one to stay the same because generally those around you are working, and so if you're not working and everybody else is, you're kind of getting worse because they're getting better. And so I've always kind of embodied that. Like I've got to continue to improve no matter what I used to do or what I did back then. What am I doing now to set myself up for success in the future? And that to me is like, it's a pretty good kind of mantra to live by. Like you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There is no staying the same out here because the goal for everybody should be to be a better version of themselves, both personally, spiritually, emotionally, professionally, athletically. I mean, like that to me is a pretty good phrase.
I love what you said there. 100% agreed with everything you said. So help me frame the conversation for you as an agent, and I see the coach as that person who daily motivates the team and gets them to do better every day. You as an agent are doing the same thing, but you're doing it from the other side because there's a financial incentive for the agent for the player to do better. Um, how do you inspire and motivate your clients who are trying to stay in the game? Because I'm sure there's a philosophy that goes along with that.
Well, I think my story kind of speaks for itself, but I think I'm in a unique spot. Like there are former players who are agents. They're not a lot of former players that had the career that I had that are agents. So I'm not just a guy that said, "Oh yeah, I played 2 or 3 years in the league." Like my perspective is going to be different than a lot of theirs. And the fact that I kind of took the hard route, the long route to success in the NFL, gives me, I think, even a little bit more credibility in how I'm relating to the guys, because most of the stories are more similar to mine than those that are first round picks. Because it's like we mentioned earlier. I mean, it's 3 years is basically the average career length for guys, and so for somebody like me to overcome and become a guy that played as long as I did, I think that is going to resonate with guys. And as I transitioned out of football and into media and coaching and scouting, and kind of realizing that that wasn't the route that I wanted to take, I had to figure out how could I best tap into my experience as a player, as a guy that built relationships in the NFL for now over 20 years, to give back to the younger generation of players in a way that would obviously be meaningful, but in a way that's not going to necessarily take all of my time away from my family. Married, have a wonderful wife, 3 young kids, and I had a great relationship with my agent. And so, as I was pondering possible avenues, I called him and I said, "Hey, I'm thinking about studying for the agency certification exam." And he said, "Do it. You'd be great." And that was kind of all I needed to hear, because he knows, what type of person I am, how much I care about others, how much I care about giving back to football and the younger generation. And then I've got crazy amount of experience in that world that I think is invaluable for the guys that are working with us now. And they use me as an outlet. They use me as a guy that they can call for anything, really, but particularly in how to navigate the modern NFL in the life of a football player. And so yeah, I mean, it's been quite the journey. I've this 2026 draft class is my third class. I've got 7 guys on rosters heading into training camp. A couple other guys that are free agents that we're going to hope get signed, but just trying to build it and build it the right way in a landscape that is. I don't know that it could be any more different than when I was coming out to the NFL 21 years ago now, especially with NIL, all the ways that that has changed the college and landscape, and that guys, obviously moving on to the NFL. Um, but I'm trying to learn as the game is changing, and I'm enjoying myself and feel like I'm more fulfilled than I was, in the years prior to becoming an agent.
Yeah. I see a lot of parallels between the story you're describing in your own journey and then what happens in the corporate world as well, because we don't look at corporate like it's a sport, but I see that as being a mistake because there is actually a lot more common than we want to believe. One of the things you touched on is, success. Once you're there, you stay hungry. And NFL as a system is all steaks and potatoes. There's a lot of steaks and potatoes. How do you like if you were to talk to a young person who's aspiring to be in that environment and a system that doesn't really coach you or train you to control yourself when you have steaks and potatoes all around you? What is the mindset that you would bring to that person? How would you coach them?
Well, I mean, I hate to keep repeating myself, but it always starts with your work. And to me, something that I learned a couple years into my career as I was trying to become a regular, was control what you could control. I mean, that to me, because my rookie year, I didn't play in any games. I was up and down from the practice squad to the active roster. After my rookie season, they sent me to NFL Europe. I didn't want to go, but I knew that I needed to go. Come back, make the team in 2006, play in 3 games, get cut again, put back on the practice squad. And so, having played a little bit and been around for over a year, I really struggled with trying to understand why I wasn't playing. Why? I'm better than this dude. Why am I not on the field? I'm better than this guy. Why am I not at least on the active roster? So trying to understand those things kind of wore at me. And then I started to kind of really worry about stuff that I had zero control over. And my old receiver coach, Curtis Johnson, New Orleans native, he said, bruh, stop counting numbers, stop trying to figure out what's going to happen, and just control what you can control. What are those things? You can control your work ethic. You can control your attitude. You can control your preparation. You can control how you treat those around you. And so for me, I kind of put on the hard hat and was like, you know what, you're right. I'm gonna stop worrying about that. And sure enough, the very next season is kind of when my career started to take off. But I think that's probably the single most important piece of advice I could give. You obviously can't hide from the work, right? Like because you show up and you're not prepared, then it's going to be a wrap before it even starts. But I think controlling what you can control is the main thing. I'm an agent. Let me worry about your contract. Let me worry about the teams that are going to be scouting you. Like, let me worry about those things. You control what you can control as a football player, and how you get your body ready, how you take care of your body, how you prepare yourself, your attitude that you have as being a guy that's a I'll do whatever you need coach type of player. Um, and I think there's definite parallels with that and the business world because people have got to be one, you've got to be coachable, you've got to be accountable, and you've got to be hardworking if you want to have success. Because that success, to me, success doesn't happen by accident, right? Like there's got to be work that's put in order to attain that level of success, or at least a certain level of success. I guess somebody could stumble into something one time, but sustained success isn't something that can be done by accident.
Yeah. So as you talk to young players today, what is the one tell sign you're looking for that they need a little extra boost or they need a little somebody else to help them coach that? Because I can imagine, at least from my experience, every person who comes to me for mentorship, I know I'm not the right person. If they say certain things, I'll direct them to somebody else. How do you find that kind of character trait, and how do you adjust for that?
I mean, I like it's you can tell within one conversation if somebody's a good fit or not. And I feel like while obviously I want to have the best possible football players on my client list, I want the best possible people first and foremost. Because those are people, one, that it's a joy to work with, and two, they're easier to work with most of the time. So trying to make sure that the people that I surround myself with are people that I would want to be around my family, people that I can trust, people that because they've got a job to do. Obviously, I'm working for them, but our success works hand in hand. The more successful the player is, the better the contract that I can get him usually is, which means I'm making more money as well as him making more money. So I think the trust aspect, hardworking individuals, obviously, and kind of understanding the big picture. Like it's not just about football, right? I had a coach back in the day that told me like this life is not just about us. Like what type of impact are you trying to have on the world around you? What type of impact are you trying to have on your community, wherever you play? Are you interested in being a mentor for kids and speaking to kids? And like, it's, it's one thing to be a great football player. It's another thing to be a great football player that understands the responsibility that you have as a professional football player in the NFL to your community and specifically to the kids in your community. That was always a big thing for me in my career. And as I got older and older, I started to realize it more and more. So I spent more time in the community. I mean, even back in 2012, I was taking classes because I was still trying to graduate, obviously playing full time as a Saint. And every single Tuesday and then some, I was doing some kind of community outreach, a visit, speaking engagement. And ultimately, I ended up winning the Saints Walter Payton Man of the Year award that season. So it's it's uh it's bigger than just football to me. And understanding that these young people look up to you, and you've got a responsibility to rub elbows, and be around them when you can. I think that's when guys are already aware of that early on. That like I'm kind of drawn to that type of player. But if they're not, it's something that I'm going to relay to them as they get going in their career. Like, hey, you you're in a great situation. The opportunity is there, but don't forget about those who pay to come see you. Because it's they're an important part of what we do as professional athletes.
No, you hit on a good point, and we talk about this in the corporate world that you should give back when you're getting to where you're trying to get in the level, maybe CEO, etc. You should be giving back, even being on a board of a nonprofit board, helping give back to your community, kids, etc. So it's the same thing, and I think I see a lot from the NFL wanting to give back to kids, communities, etc. As well. I'm kind of curious when, you look at how long you were in the NFL, you retire very young for most. People retire very young. What do you tell the people that you have that you're supporting as an agent, et cetera? Do you have that conversation early with them about what happens after the NFL? They should be prepared, or is that something you wait a little bit till later?
Well, no, I mean, it's like usually on my introductory calls, and probably more so to parents than the actual athletes. That'll be a conversation that'll be had shortly thereafter. But I think I relate uh, guys who play sports or women who play sports for a long time, and specifically professional athletes who ultimately all of us go on and retire from sport. But I relate sport to basically your longest non-familial relationship. And any time that you are together with a sport for as long as we are, I mean, you're talking 20 plus years that football and I were together. Whenever you break up with that sport, there's gonna be a natural grieving process. And I think while I played, a long time and while I made a decent amount of money, I mean, not enough money that I could just sail into the sunset and not ever do anything again, but um, there was still a grieving process. And it was kind of a weird place to be because you're so used to being structured. You've got the schedule and you've got something to look forward to, and you know where you're going to be and when you're going to be there. To end up not having that anymore was a shock to the system. And then it's like, oh man, like I've had these ideas in my mind for what's next, but do I really want to do any of those things? Um, and so I jumped right into the media. I was doing the coaching thing on the side and scouting, and I just didn't love any of that stuff. And so I wouldn't necessarily say I was depressed. Maybe I was to a certain extent because it just wasn't enough, and I didn't feel moved, and I really just felt the pressure of needing to figure it out. And so being that I went through that, I can only imagine what so many other guys go through as they retire and trying to figure out how to reinvent themselves. Um, I want my guys now to have maybe not necessarily a foolproof plan, but at least an idea about the things that they're interested in and how they can parlay that interest into something that could become a career, hobby, or whatever you want to call it after they're done playing football. And I know that it's easier said than done, but it's better to get that conversation and the proverbial ball rolling earlier than later.
And now that I sit there and think about it, actually, if you bring in high school, pee wee football, etc.
Mhm.
Actually, that's a long time
Yeah.
with football or any sport that you have. So yeah, it makes sense that there's a symbiotic of a grieving process. It's like I'm not going to be doing this anymore. Like I've been playing this for a long time, and
I
it's
mean,
something I'm not going to do.
here's an example. I retire after the 15, not after the 15. After the 15 season, I was a free agent, ended up signing with the Atlanta team. I don't even want to mention them. I signed with them. I get there, I'm in meetings, I'm in practice. I'm like, do I really want to do this anymore? And eventually decided it's time for me to hang them up. But honestly, I wasn't ready mentally. I just wasn't. Now I was starting to check out. Would have been on a fourth team in 4 years, and I was just like, I don't really want to be the guy that's holding on too long. But I dealt with some stuff. Just like, oh man, I went from full bore football player to now I have nothing. I was a little bit lost, but okay. I was happy to not be in training camp, happy to not be in practice, and waking up early for meetings and getting yelled at. I was happy. Once we got to the regular season games in that 2016 season, I would be watching the game and I'd be shaking. And my wife was like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Nah, I don't know what's going on, but this is weird." And I it was pretty scary for a little while because I didn't know how to process what was going on. But I do think it was definitely part of that letting go and the grieving of something that I had known most of my life up until that point. So, um, yeah, I mean, I don't know any other way to equate it other than it's a relationship that you had for a long time, then it's just cut off like that. And then how do you process and deal with that? Um, is going to be a story for everybody to tell. But for me, it was one that didn't start off super easy, and it took me time to get to the point where I was really, really ready to take on a full time new career. And I'm happy that it kind of I had to try other things to figure out where I needed to be, and I feel like I'm in the right spot.
I'm kind of curious from your aspect. Do you think there should be a transition plan from the NFL when you decide to retire? Because I feel like it's you retire and then in a sense, you got to figure it out after that. Is that the
Yeah, I
case?
mean, I do think the league could do more. Absolutely. I do think that the Players Association could do more. They do some things, but it's I think there should be some kind of requisite, like because we don't. The hard part about that though is you don't know when the end of your career is going to be. Most guys, most guys want to play as long as humanly possible. For some guys, it's 2 years. For some guys, it's 15 years, and you don't really know. So how do you bridge that gap? How do you get guys started on a plan early enough on so that it's well in motion when it's time for them to be done? um, I think there should be mandatory mental health check-ins. I think there should be a network that the league is plugged into of hundreds. I guarantee you there'll be hundreds, maybe thousands of companies that would love to employ former NFL players. How cool would that be to be the leading staffing or placement company for former NFL players? Hey, where do you live? What are your interests? What kind of experience do you have? Boom, we've got these six different companies that would love to hire you. Like that to me would could potentially save a lot of potential tragedy from guys that fall into a hole, whether it be drugs, alcohol, depression, the law. Um, because it's one thing to be on that platform for a long time, and some guys can handle that being taken away from them. Other guys can't, and they have a hard time redefining and reinventing themselves. And I think having something, maybe not necessarily the day they retire, but having something early on that they can tap into that can help kind of get them going back in the right direction, I think would be amazing.
No, I agree. I want to go to, of course, you're a sports agent now. You have the NFL, but of course, not everybody makes the NFL. There's other avenues, of course, as Canadian football, etc. How does that conversation go to a potential person who said, "Well, NFL might not be the place, but there's other avenues for them to redirect that way." How does that conversation go for
Well,
you?
yeah, I mean, I've had some of those conversations, and it's not easy, but you got to be honest with guys. Again, it goes back to what I was talking about early on in the interview. You've got to be able to set realistic expectations with guys. They all would love to be $100 million players, but the reality is most guys are not, and that's okay. And it's not easy having a conversation with the guy and telling him, "Hey, nobody's calling. We might have to pivot. We might have to go in a different direction. We might have to explore the UFL or the CFL." And a lot of times guys think the CFL is just going to be a cakewalk. It's not. My brother played up there for 8 years. And I understand the the players might not be on the same level as NFL players, but there's a lot of other things that are going on up there that aren't necessarily football specific. It's the Canadian Football League. They have to have a certain amount of Canadians, not just on their roster, but on the field at the same time. And so it's like, okay, yeah, you have the ability to play up there, but that doesn't mean we could just get you signed and you're going to be up there starting. So um, these are conversations that we're having regularly. Some guys are guys that have never been on a roster and they're still trying to hold on. I think the even harder conversation is it might not work out at all for you. And it's probably time to start exploring something else. Like those are I haven't necessarily had to have one of those yet. I'm definitely nearing it with one player, unfortunately. Um, but that's a part of the business. And I'd rather be honest with the guy than sell a guy a dream and that dream not end up coming true for him.
There's definitely a lot of parallels. I mean, what you're describing is essentially loss of identity when you retire from a sport you've been a part of for so long. And I know that a lot of our corporate colleagues as well have a similar kind of dilemma. You're in tech for a long time, or you're working with a big company for a long time, and things change, acquisitions, or something else happens, the market changes, and now you no longer have a product that matches what the product, market has, AI being one of those kinds of things. And we see similar kind of cycles, maybe not to the extent that maybe an NFL player would, but I think a lot of them feel some of the same kind of emotions. But we're coming up to the top of the hour here, and I want to be respectful for your time as well, Lance. Towards the end of the show, we like to do a lightning round where we talk fast questions, like whatever comes tip of mind first. Um, are you game?
Of course. Let me
Awesome.
just grab a drink of water before we do this.
There you go. There you go. Renard, can I trouble you to be the first person to start us off here with a lightning round?
Yeah, yeah, I'll do it. So Lance, first day of practice squad in one word.
Chaos.
Alright.
I think that's a fair way.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So, one thing the NFL systematically gets wrong about preparing players for life after football. Just one thing.
It's a systematic well, it is a systematic thing. I just think that the NFL is such a great and successful league. I feel bad that they literally chew guys up and spit them out. And I just think that they should do more for the former player than they do. And ultimately it comes down to dollars and cents, right? The owners want to make as much money as humanly possible and not have to spend as much as humanly possible. But I do think that they could do more to take care of the former player, whether that be in the form of health insurance, helping them get sustainable jobs, and really taking care of the older former players who are really struggling. I think they missed the mark on that a little bit, where other leagues I think have done a better job.
Okay, okay. So, of course, this goes back to your time playing. Who was the cornerback who gave you nightmares?
Darrell Revis. Darrell Revis. Well, I mean, I people are like, "Oh, Darrell Revis, like he was good, but was he?" Yes, Darrell Revis could do everything, and he was a guy that was so smart and so patient, and like I I just think he's the type of player that would have success in any era based on how he played, how smart he was, and he just made the job harder. Like that's he wasn't the meanest, he didn't hit the hardest, he wasn't the fastest. He was super athletic and quick, but he wasn't like 4.2, 4.3 speed guy, but he was just so fluid, so good, so smart, so reactive, and a guy that really lock people down. He was a guy that I think was the toughest to go against in my
That is not the first time I've ever heard that.
yeah.
Out of NFL players. A lot of people do say his name on a regular basis, talking about toughest corner. Amir, before you ask another question, because since he just said eras, Lance, if you could have played in any other era, which one would it have been?
This one.
I need
And
to
you
hear
know
why.
why?
No, you
Because
got
the
to tell me
money
why.
that these jokers are making now is insane. And I would love to be a part of it. I tell my wife all the time, I was like 15, 16 years too old. I should have been playing in this generation so I could make their type of money. But uh yeah, I love it for them. I think that while the game continues to grow globally, and you add to that the TV deals, the gambling, the money is just going to continue to go up. And I love it for the players. I just hope that they've got good financial people around them and understand that that money's not coming in forever. Uh, I love it for them.
I need to learn a lot more about football, Renard.
Yes.
So remind
Yes.
me, please, regularly. I
One of
need
the
to go
greatest games
educate.
in the world, Amir. I can't believe you don't watch this. One of the greatest games in the world.
Listen, I understand the game, but unlike you, I'm not well versed. But I do have an appreciation for the players because I know what a hard game it is and the kind of rigor you have to put your body through in that. So, on the financial aspect, Lance, I want to ask you, um, the financial conversation you wish every rookie had before their first NFL paycheck. What would you say?
Yeah, you're getting ready to come into more money than you've ever had in your life. But remember that last check you just got could be the last check that you get. So you you need to react and respond accordingly. Like, sure, you're making good money now, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be making good money forever. And some guys just don't understand it. Some guys don't care, but a lot of guys do, and they live and they live good lives, but they live in such a way that they understand that yes, I'm making good money now, but my career is only going to be so long, so I'm only going to make this kind of money for a certain amount of time, and ultimately, I want to be able to have a good life after football, and the only way to do that is to make sure that you don't allow yourself to spend like crazy and go broke. Ultimately.
Discipline. Love it.
Discipline, yeah, that's important. I'm curious, Lance. You take away football, etc. We go all the way back to your martial arts days. If you did not play football, what would you have been doing by now?
Oh, I would have been in the NBA for sure.
All right. Okay. Okay.
No, I honestly, I went to school for business. I have a business management degree, so I feel like I would be somewhere in the business world. Not exactly sure where, but um, always been intrigued by athletics. Maybe even front office somewhere. I think that still semi pipe dream of mine to be the general manager of the Saints someday. I don't know necessarily how I'm going to parlay that now because it's not like I'm a 25-year-old young man that's an up and comer in the scouting world. But um, yeah, I mean, I love sport. I love leadership and being um, one of the voices in the room of trying to build something special. And so I think somewhere along those lines would be where I would have ended up.
Black belt or Lombardi trophy? You can only keep one. Why?
Trophy. so sorry,
I thought
Dad.
so. I
Sorry,
thought so.
Dad. I think it's again, it's a dream that most kids have, who love football, and to be able to have been one of the few who could say that not only I got there, but I won one. I don't know that there's anything else that I could have done in my life that would be cooler yet, at least. But yeah, yeah, football. Love football. I love karate, and I think it is a big part of the reason why I am where I am today. Honestly, but yeah, I could settle for a Lombardi Trophy for sure.
And Amir, I will tell you this: there are some of the greatest football players ever to play who have never won one. So I
For
want
sure.
you to understand how
Yeah.
rare it is to get there and then win one. 'Cause there are some who you call the greatest players to ever play in the game have never even won one. So try. I see why I would pick Lombardi, and I'm a black belt. I would pick Lombardi Trophy.
Well, Renard, I'll leave the last question to you.
Okay. Oh man, at the end of the day, for you, all the stuff that you have done, etc., what does legacy look like for you?
I think for me, it's not about football at all. It's about setting a standard for my children. I think that is what's most important to me. I've told people a lot, like football was just a piece of my story. It's not my whole story. Um, it allowed me to be on television and to travel the world and to do some really, really cool things. I mean, football allowed me to meet my wife. So I don't have the life that I have today without football. I'm very appreciative and will always love the game and give back to the game. Um, but again, that's just a piece of my story. Um, Setting a good example for my kids and how I treat their mother, how I treat strangers, just being a good person, instilling a work ethic in them, um, allowing them to emote, something that I had to learn how to do in my adulthood. Being the best possible example I can be for them so that I can help them be the best possible adult someday. That to me is what legacy is about. It's something that I strive for every single day to be a better version of myself for them.
That's a good answer. That's the right answer, by the way. I'm gonna say that's the right answer. That's a good answer.
I love how you said best version of an adult, because some
Yeah,
people find that hard to do sometimes.
for sure. For sure.
Well, Lance, I had an absolute pleasure getting to know you a little bit more, hearing your story. You, sir, are definitely a true leader, and I truly feel grateful that you gave us your time and attention today. Um, you know, one thing I like to do is see what I can learn for myself because there's a whole lot of value here. And a few things I jotted notes for myself here is that mentorship is very important. I love how you framed it that you didn't realize how much you needed it until you started reflecting on it. I also want to call out perseverance. I mean, you're a walking example of perseverance, not to mention confidence. And something that I know, not just in myself, but other folks, is that imposter syndrome gets to us and it gets to us sometimes every day, sometimes periodically. But to know that you are the best version of yourself and working towards it, and that type of confidence, I think, is the lesson I took away from you. So I appreciate you sharing that story as well with us. And with that, Renard, any parting words you'd like to add?
I'll say, for Lance and many other people, the road to success or to legacy is not a straight road. Sometimes you got to make a couple of lefts, a few rights, some U-turns, etc. But not giving up is the most important. Believing in yourself and is the way to go in order to continue to strive and get where you want to. Because trust me, it doesn't have to just be the NFL. It could be in your professional life at some point somebody thinks about quitting. It's getting past that part to continue to move forward to get where you need to be. So if people remember success is never going to be a straight line. If it was easy, everybody would do it. Mm.
Lance, if people wanted to find you or get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, social media. I'm on Twitter and Instagram, Facebook, all those at Lance Moore 16. You can keep up with me there and hit me up if you have any questions about anything. I love to chop it up and chat with people and like you, Amir. I mean, I'm always trying to learn myself. So Renard, you said the road to success is not always straight. I would say my road to success wasn't even paved. I had to pave it myself. I mean, I'm still trying to pave it today.
Mhm.
And those are the kind of nuggets that I think we all should be taking away with us. And with that, I'm going to ask our listeners to, please leave us a rating on Apple Podcast and leave us a review as well, because this is how other people can find us. And that 30 seconds that you'll spend doing that for us is going to allow us to continue this work that we're doing. Again, someone in your life probably wants to hear or should hear this. I think Lance has a wonderful story and wonderful lessons for everybody who tunes into this show. Hopefully you grow from this experience, and hopefully we will see you on the next episode.